Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. We continue our implementer series as I sit down with special guest Brad Tumy, and we continue that conversation about what are some of the skills that are needed to be a good practitioner when it comes to identity and access management. Also, we talk about some of the key things that you are going to need to make sure that your identity and access management deployment is successful. All this while sipping a cocktail, of course. One quick tidbit, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, and if you are, thanks, don't forget to subscribe. You'll notice that the light actually does get really dim. So I was enjoying the conversation with Brad so much, I totally forgot to turn the light on. So by the end of the conversation, I am completely sitting in the dark, but makes for some fun stuff to have on the video. So enjoy that. Of course, this episode and this podcast is brought to you by the On the Corner Podcast Network. Check us out at onthecorner.us, where we are launching 2 brand new podcasts this month, all mixed up, in which we talk about interracial relationships and what it's like to have an interrelationship in the South, what it means for raising children, and some of the challenges that come with that. It's starting to have those conversations and putting them out there. Our second podcast is Open Door Conversations, having some of those tough conversations that we need to have within the African-American community. So really looking forward to those podcasts. They are dropping. We've been working hard on those, so please check those out. Subscribe, get ready, all that good stuff. So without further ado, we're going to hop to the Cocktails, Code, and Conversation episode with Brad Tumy. See you after the break. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. And with this one, we are continuing the Implementer series. And today we have special guest, Mr. Brad Tumy, on the pod. Welcome, Brad. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Going good. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being on. So always like to let the guests go ahead and introduce themselves.
Great. So as you said, I'm Brad Tumy, work in the identity space. I've been doing the identity thing. I think we're getting pretty close to 15, 16 years now.
Okay.
For the last 7 or 8 years, it's been mostly ForgeRock, plus a little bit of little open source stuff that I'm trying to build out on my own. Before that was Oracle, a little bit of IBM, definitely a lot of Sun prior to that.
Right.
So yeah, just that's me in a nutshell.
All right. And so with this episode, we're continuing our implementer series, just talking about, how you got into identity, what it takes to be, you feel it to be a good implementer with identity and access management. So, but I always like to ask my guests, especially if they've got a background in identity or they've been in identity for a while, like, how did you get into the identity and access management space, right? Because I always find this an interesting story for everybody.
Yeah. So, by total accident, really, just kind of stumbled into it. I started out doing web application development. I mean, that's the fancy way of saying I made web pages, and evolved from there into more application development. And a friend of mine we were working together, and he left, started working for this new company. And about 6 months into it, he called me and said, "Hey, you know that identity management stuff we were working on? Well, there's this company I'm working for. They do that full time. You got to come out and talk to them." And I had no idea what he was talking about. I had never heard the term identity management before. Anyway, long story short, I went and talked with them and ended up on a project with the VA. Basically, this was right around right as the EOF program was taken off, and really was brought on to do a bake-off between a couple different vendors. And the cool part about it is that, I mean, like I said, I had never heard of identity management before, but there I am getting paid to learn several different vendors. So that really started it. And then from there, ended up working at Oracle for a number of years. And then from Oracle, went out on my own. So for the last 12 years, have been just as an independent consultant.
Right.
So that's how I ended up in this space. Maybe not as sexy as the just kind of tripped and fell into the space,
Yeah. And you know what? That's honestly, and I don't think it's going to happen, right? Maybe if I meet or if I get somebody in my network and meet somebody that's a little bit younger, I will say. But most of the people talk, it's all the same story, right? We just gotta,
Hmm.
it was like, oh, I was doing this, and then this thing just happened, right? It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
um,
yeah. That's yeah. I was going to say the same. The same thing. Most people, not a lot of people went to college to become an identity management specialist, or when that's how they started out. It's kind of funny. My wife, she's always telling my son like, "Hey, get in with your dad. Do what like that's a shoe in. Like you've got your future set." And it's like, no way. I don't want anything to do with that. So, um, yeah, I think that most people don't set out, but you know, I, they the one thing is that everybody comes from different background though.
yeah,
I've never very few people all have the same exact. I went from this to this to this. Everybody's got a little bit of I was doing audits, or I was doing
right.
application development, or I was doing physical security. It's all of these different areas, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the things that I really do enjoy about like the identity community.
Hmm.
We do have a lot of diverse in thought and background in that nature, right? We have a lot of people that come from those different backgrounds, and so um, especially when it comes to talking about identity and thinking about it, we get a lot of interesting conversations and thoughts about how not only do they view it, but how they look at implement it and how they apply like strategic thought to it.
Hmm.
What I think has really helped grow the community and allowed us to kind of cultivate where it is now, right? Because when I started, this thing was so niche, right? It was just in most of us were, just picking it up off of the vendors of whatever application we had to go implement, right?
Right.
So for me, it was Sun, right? That's how it started. It was Sun Identity Manager. I got these manuals dropped on my desk one day for Sun Identity Manager, and 15, 16 years later, right? I'm an identity and access management professional.
Right.
So, and it kind of grew. I saw it grow from there as we started to get like more working groups together, as people started to really kind of understand us a little more, and authentication, authorization, right? How all these things matter and kind of come together. And then I think it helped with some of the um, consolidation of the vendors when kind of Oracle
Hmm.
their big kind of shopping spree there and bought up just about everything in the market, um,
Right.
and then just kind of allowed it to consolidate for a while, and then now just kind of after that just kind of break apart, and you saw all these little companies kind of spring up. Cellpoint, company I actually ended up working for, kind of
Hmm.
they got of there. Um, so, with that, I want to ask, right? So you've been, an independent consultant now, for a while, and so as you've gotten different projects, right? Have you implemented projects and got some out to production? What are some of the things that you would say, um, one, have helped you be successful, as an implementer
Hmm.
in there and help you get the projects out, and number two, with that, like what are maybe some skills you would say, looking back, that say, hey, um, here are things that you need to develop that you probably might not know of, that you kind of learned, on the job
Sure.
as you're going.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. The I think that there's definitely the technical skills
Hmm.
that you need to have. You need to understand networking, application security, um, HTTP. That's one that always surprises me in the lack of understanding. And I'm talking about from myself, not from other people. Um, it didn't occur to me until I'm going to say a few years ago. It was a little more than a few years ago, but the, what was behind the browser and making the whole thing work. It was really when people started
Yep.
moving towards REST, moving away from SOAP, and all of the vendors started publishing REST APIs, that it really clicked for me that that's how it works.
Right.
So that's a big one. The um, the skills that I think that the I, I was going to say soft skills, but they're not even soft skills. They're still the hard skills or the technical skills, but they're not necessarily what a lot of younger people that are working in the tech want to focus on. Project management is huge.
Hmm.
Agile. Uh, you know, how do you craft a good story in Jira? That's a big one that a lot of people, um, a lot of people just pass it off. But when you get into a project, you're getting into deadlines, you're getting into a bigger team. Um, the communication of being able to effectively communicate, you know, what's required here and how do you close the story? I mean, it
Right.
seems like it's just common sense, but it's really not. A lot of teams struggle with that of just how do you, it's just it seems like it's the basics, but it's really not. And it's not it's you're not going to always end up on a project where you have a PM and a Scrum Master and you have all of this, the people infrastructure of a really well funded project. Most projects are not well funded.
Right.
Most projects are, they're pulling together people that happen to be available, and they're pulling together people that they're kind of cannibalizing other projects and that project that was the project that you're on that they had to beg, borrow, and steal to get resources. This is the number one project in the company. This is the P1 that everyone's working on. So it's funny, but really, those are the types of things that you 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 really have to, you have to kind of go outside of the tech a little bit and say what else is going to help me successfully deploy this project.
Okay. And I want to go a little further on that, right? So when you talk
Okay.
about, because you bring up a really good point, right? Like that, um, these teams are for the most part with clients kind of thrown together, right? It's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, this is it. High executive buy-in. We're doing this. We spent X millions of dollars, and you're like, great. Where's the team? Uh,
Yep.
you this one guy kind of like 25% of the time, and maybe like it's wait what? Um,
And this intern.
right? Yeah, right, he's got a marketing background, but it's okay. Like I
Yeah.
know Python. Um, so what in your opinion, right? What makes a good project team, right? So you walk in, they say, hey, look, we're bringing you on, and you're saying, great. You see like these things, 3, 5, whatever
Hmm.
it is. You're just like, okay, this is going to be a good project team. Like this team is set up for success.
Sure. So I think number one, and this is the one I think that gets missed the most, is product owner or project owner. You need to have someone that is, and I think that this role used to be called business analyst,
Hmm.
but they've that is evolved into a product owner, and you really have to think of the project. And when I say you have to, I don't mean you as the implementer, but you as the company that's doing the project. You really have to think of each project as a product, as a service that you're deploying and making available to customers, whether it's internal, external, whatever. Um, so you really need to have someone they have an ear for the business, they understand what the priorities are, they understand what the requirements are, they understand um, they understand exactly what is needed from the business perspective.
Right.
But they can also translate that into the tech and be able to communicate with the project manager or the technical lead or the developers, the engineers, whoever, and to be able to say, this is exactly what the business wants. This is what the business needs. This is what they're asking you for. They may not be able to tell you exactly in terms that the terminology may be off, but here's what they're really after. I think a lot of times you're in a situation where on a current project that I'm working on, my role is a tech lead, and so a lot of times we'll have developers that will look at a story, and 2 weeks ago they said, I got it. I understand what this story means, and you're like, great, it's well groomed, everything's good. a week and a half goes by, and they come back and they say, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. Or they start to get into it and they start to unpack it a little bit and they realize, oh, this is a little bit more complex or a little bit more ambiguous than I thought. So
Right.
you got to have that person that you can go to and say, help us out here. Who is this? Okay, so I probably spent too much time talking about product owner, but
Oh, that's okay.
I think that's how important it is. You gotta have that role,
Right.
and the title doesn't matter, but you just gotta have that role. Next is a good project manager, someone who is driving the team and understands the milestones, understands the delivery, understands the releases, understands the and this is a big one that often gets missed. What are the dependencies? Not just on your, like, not just what are your dependencies, but what other teams are delivering that depend on you.
Yep.
Especially as we get into as more and more projects are, I can't remember the term for it. It's agile, but it's when you have like agile of agile, like your project's agile and this project's agile, but they got to work together. So
Right.
it's like a scrum of scrums, maybe is what they call it. And so it's someone who understands and can keep track of both what's going on in both areas. So definitely project manager. A lot of times I see companies will blur the lines between project manager and scrum master. And certainly a person can do both, but you really need to have someone that understands agile. And when you get into questions about the process or help us define our process, you got to have someone that really understands that and can help drive that. After that, you need to have people that understand the technology you're implementing, and you need to have people that can actually deliver and can effectively communicate to the project manager, to the product owner, what it takes to implement.
Right.
I think early on in my career, I would work, a lot of times it would be just me delivering, and I'd be working with a project manager, and they'd come to me and say, okay, well, how long do you think this is going to take? 3 days, 4 days, a week, a month, whatever. You're always off. You're always off by at least a factor of 3.
Right.
So it's being able to effectively communicate the details of, well, I need to implement this, but it's going to impact these other things here. And so it's not just I think anymore it's not really, it used to be, I just want someone who's really good with Java, or I want someone that really knows Oracle Identity or Oracle Database, but I don't think that's enough anymore. I think you really have to, you have to understand the system. You have to understand how you fit into the system and how the system all interoperates together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, identity projects are always unique because they're, connective by nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a thing that you're not just building an application and deploying it and then that's it, right? It's like, okay, great. Like, here's my application. People can hit it and people can do things with it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
as well as for people to be able to do things with it. It's got to go and connect into other systems within, that little ecosystem, right? Whether you're doing access management, whether you're doing, authentication, it doesn't matter. It has to go and connect to all these things because, for the most part, nobody uses the identity and access management, implementation, right? Not directly.
Right.
It's they see it, right? When they go access their, smart sheet, and when they click it, it automatically logs them in, right? Because, they sign or sends them to whatever their SSO screen, they sign in, all those things, whatever, they have the access that they need, right? That's when the users kind of hit it, or they got to go request for access to something. So that's when, your production deployment actually becomes live to the
Right.
customers. And so to do all that, it takes understanding how it fits into that ecosystem, right? So,
Oh yeah.
I always say, and I always feel biased when I say it, just because I was like, okay, it's my career. I was like, it's one of the hardest things. Like you have to not just be a technologist, right? Like just knowing
Hmm.
the tools or the software is not going to really help you. I mean, it is
Right.
to implement, but like to really do it successfully and at a high level, you're going to need to understand more of that. So, with that, I want to, I want to get your opinion on, the last one that you said was like, okay, somebody who, knows knows the system, knows to implement it, and has that, that savvy experience of looking at something and going, okay, I know this is going to take me 3 days, and this one's going to take me 5 weeks. Like,
Right.
um, what what do you feel like it takes to develop that, right? Because you're not there day one. So what are some of the skills that you would say you need to develop to get better at that? And then what are the
Hmm.
things that when you are kind of sizing up a team and you look at somebody and say, okay, yep, that girl, she's got it, right?
Yeah.
What are those things that you see?
Um, so I think a lot of people, um, by nature, we want to be helpful. By nature, we want to please people, and there's a tendency to tell people what they want to hear or what you think that they want to hear.
Mhm.
And so when a project manager comes to you and says, "How long is this going to take?" Everybody has an idea of what is too much time. Everybody is, because you always come up with some number that you
Right.
think is just under what's too much time. And so you say, and you kind of like look at them like 2 weeks, and then they go, oh, and you know what? I think I could do it in a week and a half, a week and a half. I can do it. And so then you do this negotiation.
Right.
Um, the skill that I look for, and I'm using the estimation, but this is broader than just estimating.
Right.
Um, the skill that I look for is someone that can say, this is going to take 3 weeks, and when they get pushback, they know how to negotiate that. And negotiating doesn't mean folding. Negotiating means, well, I can deprioritize all of these other things that you asked me to work on. I could stop working on this other thing that you told me yesterday was really important. If this is more important, I'll stop working on these other things and I'll work on this. There's a friend of mine I've worked with on multiple projects, and he is so good at that. And it's the most genuine conversation, and there's no emotion.
Right.
There's no hemming and hawing. He doesn't feel bad about it. He just tells you what it is. He just says, this is going to take me 4 or 5 days. Um, if that's not good, let me know. We can deprioritize these other things. If that's still not good, well, here's what I have. Here's why it's going to take me that much time.
Right.
And it's not a negotiation. It's just him telling you what the facts are. And I think that is when you can when the person, maybe this is what it is, maybe when the person can get out of the gut estimate, gut estimating, and they
Right.
can tell you the reason and the facts based on some metric. Here's why it's going to take me this long, and it's something that you can work with. It's something that you can understand. But it's looking for someone that can get out of the emotional side of wanting to please everybody and not really sort of guessing
Right.
at at the amount of time it's going to take to work on something.
Yeah. And I think what that I feel like that obviously, that comes with experience, right? You got
Hmm.
to get burned a couple of times, but you also have to get comfortable, implementing, different areas to just know that, okay, I've seen this a number of
Right.
times. So this is about, what it's going to take to get this done. So I want to shift back to the project, right? So, we've listed the three key roles
Hmm.
that you see would make a successful project. And then from there, what have you seen in your experience that leads to, successful projects, right? One of the things about this industry is that, the failure rates in the beginning were astronomical. Like
Right.
9 out of 10 of these projects would fail. Like
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous, right? We were just like, we were going in knowing we were going to lose. And it's like, all right, we're going to cut the check anyway.
Yeah.
Gotten better.
Oh, and it would take years.
Right.
It would take 3 or 4 years just to implement Federation, just to implement SAML. It would take years.
Yeah. And, so we, thankfully we've gotten better. However, in my opinion, and it's mostly because I tend to be a little bit perfectionist, right? But again, you're doing something long enough. I'm proud to be in this industry. I always think we can do better. It seems like on average the rates are probably down to about 3 to 4 out of 10 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will kind of quote unquote fail, which is again a lot better than the 8 or 9 it used to be, but
Right.
still have those those failure rates. And I think part of it is because these are long term projects. But in your experience, what have you seen that says, okay, yeah, this project is rare one, and I see these things that means it's more than likely going to be a success.
Um, I would say that having good executive buy-in, and not just buy-in, but really understanding the need for the project.
Mm-hmm.
And the identity project, there are certain projects that are not necessarily revenue generating.
Yeah.
And I listened to your podcast. So I know that there was recently a podcast about revenue generating
Right.
identity projects that is out there, and I won't deny that. But for the projects that are, we have to. It's like burning down technical debt.
Yeah.
You never have to do that, but it's just going to get more expensive, more problematic. At some point, you have to say, we're going to burn down this technical debt, and we're going to take care of these problems because we want to be in a position that from here on out, we're nimble, or we're agile, or we're releasing new features to customers or employees in weeks and not years.
Right.
So I think it's that um, the executive leadership just really being engaged mentally with the why of the project and owning that. So I think that that's a success factor. I think that having good chemistry on the team, and it doesn't mean that the team never argues or the team never, that there's no battles. It means that that you can respectfully battle somebody, and
Absolutely.
you can respectfully disagree, and you can respectfully. But when you have one or two personalities that just, we're doing it this way, I don't care. And a lot of times that person will be a manager or will be somewhere in the leadership chain, and so we're just going to do it my way because I I know how I want to do it. I've been on, I was brought in as a consultant, and I've been on multiple projects where you know you're the customer, and you're telling me how we're going to implement it. You're telling me how we're going to architect it. Really all I'm there is because I can push the keyboard.
Right.
And those projects, most of those projects don't go well, just because that the person in that role is not listening or not hearing um, the recommendations, or not hearing the experience. And a lot of times, a consultant gets brought in not just for their technical skills, but for their experience as well.
Yep.
And so taking advantage of that experience. And I mean, the project that I'm on right now, I think between the five engineers, we probably combined have probably 60 years of ForgeRock/Sun experience,
Right.
which is tremendous. And the leadership on this project, they're like, you guys, you're here to we brought you all in for a reason.
Right.
So do your thing, and just you tell us how do we clear the path for you. There's still a lot of struggles, but having that buy-in, I think, has definitely helped us succeed.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
sorry,
I
and one more. Sorry for interrupting. One more point to that is the team. And you said it before I went on my long-winded response, but it's that wanting to improve and wanting to do better. And if the entire team is bought in on the idea that we're here because we want to improve the position of the company, we want to improve the software. If everybody's bought in on that, then everybody fights for good. Everybody's
right.
fighting for, like people are staying late because not because they feel like they have to and they're upset about it. They're staying late because they want to get that one more story finished, or they want to get that thing done, and they take pride in that. And when you see that to me, it's really not to the point where it's you have this everyone's doing these heroic efforts, and that's the only
Right.
way you'll succeed. But it's when everyone's pulling their weight and everyone's excited about um, about implementing that positive change.
Yeah. I'll go on a little mini soapbox, right? But it's the true team dynamic, right?
Hmm.
And I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some really good teams. And one of the things that I can say, it's what you're talking about when everybody's on the same page, right?
Right.
The chemistry aspect, right? It's and this is why you hear these sports analogies in business so much, because if you've played sports and you just
Hmm.
there's a time when a team just kind of comes together and everybody gets it, right? And to your point, it's not that you never argue or have debates, but it's just
Right.
everybody gets it, and it's like, okay, Brad's the tech lead, like, and there's nobody like trying to challenge you for it. It's like everybody's comfortable in their roles, but it's like, okay, Brad, you're
Hmm.
the lead, but man, I'm the directory guy, and I know that, and so maybe we debate, but it's like, no, Brad, I'm telling you that this is the way, and it's a good debate to where you know you force me to bring out my arguments, and I force you to bring in your arguments, and then together
Hmm.
we start going, you know what, yeah, this is right, okay, then it's like, boom, man, we figured it out, and then boom, we go implement, and everybody's getting excited off of that, right? And I
Right.
love that. Like teams, people will be like, oh man, it's 7 o'clock. It's like, yeah, I know, but we got like three more stories, and
Yeah.
like another 30 minutes, like we can get like all these stories finished this week, and people are just literally excited to get stuff
Yeah.
done. Not because it's like, no, oh, I got to stay here and I want to burn the midnight oil. It's just you get caught in that moment. You're accomplishing things. You're checking things off the list, and together the team starts to see the momentum. And that when that happens, I've seen those. I mean, I've been on projects where we've gotten that rhythm, and we've just blown through things that we said, man, this
Hmm.
is going to take us 6 to 7 weeks. I mean, we started cutting stuff in half because
Right.
everybody was just moving, right? I don't know what it was. It's like tests were written better, like everybody starts writing better code, like it's
Yeah.
just it's awesome to see. So yeah, I'm 1,000% agree with that. Running a good team and getting that team chemistry dynamic is important, and I think it falls a little bit on the the project manager to look at that as they're
Hmm.
putting together their team. Like, okay, you have to look at personalities and look at certain things and say, okay, what's going to be a good mix. And sometimes I think a lot of people don't um, they don't really consider that because they're just like, look, I just gotta get this job done, right? So I
Yeah.
got this girl, she's got 20 years experience. This guy's got 15 years. Like, I've got all the experience team. Like, I got the best everything. We're gonna go get it. It's like, okay, well, we'll see, right?
Right. Well, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. You have there are team members who, for whatever reason, maybe they're burned out, or maybe they just, or they're intimidated or whatever, but um, they'll stand by and watch the project go off the rails because they don't want to challenge people.
Right.
They don't want to. You're the boss. You're the tech lead. You should have seen this coming. And my philosophy is, it's kind of the round table. philosophy. Like, I'm in this role today, but I'll just as soon switch places with you. If you want the tech lead role, you take the tech lead role, but it doesn't change the dynamic of the team.
Right.
It's, we all have a voice, we all have input, and I want to hear, like I said, I'm guessing, but I think it's around 50, 60 years of experience. I want to hear what they have to say. I mean,
Yeah.
they've seen some shit, like I
Yeah.
want to see it. Like, dude, if you know a better way to do this, let's talk about it. Let's get it
Right.
all out in the open. And it's like, I know that I'm on the right team when my team is teasing me about not being technical, or not, not like, oh, well, let's not give the technical work to Brad. And I'm like, this is fantastic, because I know I've got the right people that are, on the team doing the work.
Right. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I want to dive into, ForgeRock a little bit, right? And it's mostly because I want to nerd out a little bit. I've always looked at ForgeRock, and I follow them, for most of their existence. Play with the tools here and there. Never
Mm-hmm.
really got a chance to do a full implementation with it, but especially when they were like open source. I know they still have some open source stuff. Like, I just love the fact that I could always go download it, and I could have like a full,
Yeah.
IAM stack like on my laptop or my desktop at home. And for a while I did. Like, I was that much of a nerd. And finally I was just like, okay, that's I'm done with all of this. But so talk to me a little bit about, like, their platform, what you like about it, and just why you've decided to just kind of like really stick with them and kind of you build your expertise there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the big reasons is exactly what you just said. You can download the software, and even today, they've modified their commercial license, but you can still access the binaries and install it
Okay.
today.
Thanks for
So
running for me,
let's do that now. Let's go ahead.
Brett.
um, the so that's number one. Number two is, I think that the foundation of the platform started out on a really good, it's got really good history to it. I
Yeah.
mean, there is, I don't, I mean, they're getting close to, like, they redid some numbers, but they're getting close to version 7 of their, the newer platform. But there was a time when you could log into the administrative console, and you're seeing screens and you're seeing code, or not seeing code in the admin console, but you're seeing code in the product
Right.
that was written by someone at Sun 15 years,
Yeah.
10, 15 years. And it's not crap. It's not like, oh, we got to get rid of this. I mean, it's, obviously it needs to be modernized, and they have, and it is now. But, there was a time when, you could find someone online, like Pat Patterson, or, people that had worked at Sun, and their names were in the file, and
Right.
you could find them and say, hey, I know it's ForgeRock now, but I was working on this one piece that I saw your name, and they would help you. You know, the first few years that I started with ForgeRock, I mean, like, I would reach out to Pat Patterson, I would reach out to other people. They weren't involved in
Right.
ForgeRock, and they would help. Or I would find an old blog post that they had written. And it's kind of like, it'd be corny, kind of felt like Indiana Jones, because I'm like, oh, I found that, Oracle didn't get rid of this blog post, they rebranded it, but the information's still there. And, this is under the deeper part of the product, it was, you could geek out like that. And I've got some old blog posts that I wrote that were, me trying to dig into some of those pieces. The last thing that I really love about it is, so with the other vendors that I worked with, these were huge corporations, IBM, Oracle,
Yep.
CA, and you could barely talk to support
Right.
You could barely access support. If you found an issue with their product, good luck being able to communicate and let them know and ever see a fix for that.
Right.
Um, um, at ForgeRock, the the first the first day that they announced that they were creating ForgeRock, which was I don't remember if it was weeks or a couple months after or the Oracle acquisition,
Yep.
they announced it. I reached out to Lhasa, who was one of the founders and the CEO at the time, and they were not in the U.S. yet. And I said, I love the history of, the Sun background.
Yep.
Whatever you need in the U.S., until you guys are in the U.S., whatever you need, you can always. I'll do whatever you need. And it's just because I wanted to establish that partnership. I wanted to establish that, and ForgeRock, even though they went from 5 people, and now there's I think the last I heard 500-600 people now. I can still talk to whoever I need to in that company. I still can talk to one of the founders.
Right.
I can talk to the CEO. I can talk to whoever I need to. If I need something, you just have to reach out, and they will respond. And maybe it's because they know. I don't think it's that way for everybody. Unfortunately, I think it's just not realistic. But they've always treated me like family. They've always treated me like they understand, that I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to, so, they're willing to go the extra mile and help me. One of the things that if you look at any of their when they post a job ad, if you look at that, one of the things that they always say is that they're looking for nice people.
Yeah.
And they've done that. No company's perfect.
Right.
Nobody's perfect, but they've done an amazing job of hiring nice people that you want to work with, people that you want to hang out with, people that you just, really enjoy, associating with them. So, and it hasn't always been easy. There have been times when I've been on a project and, I've been frustrated because, they're not doing it the way I want them to do it, or, I'm not getting my way. But they've always been fair.
Right.
They've always been, look, here's the situation. We can't fix that right now, or we will fix that, but give us some time. And so I would say those are the big 3 things that that I've always liked and respected about ForgeRock.
Yeah, man, they've been a staple, in the identity industry now for a good amount of time. And one of the things that, like I said, I loved about it is you could always get to their product. So it's nice that you can kind of still get to somebody to change their license. They need to go look at it because I think now, as as we are both members of ID Pro, one of the things is we try, as an industry to start this process of certifications and making it easier for kind of like the next generation of practitioners, that they don't have to, for us, it was always, we were bound to whatever vendor product we had, and we had vendor documentation. That's it. That's all we had. Right. At least now we're starting to get some of it, and it's still pretty, when I look at it from an industry standpoint, it's still pretty bad. Like I was doing research for my talk at Identiverse and trying to just find different information about SCIM, and it's like everything's by a vendor. Right. So we're still trying to get some outside sources there. But where I was going with that little rant was just the fact that it was always nice as I was coming up, like I always had somewhere to go and like download something and like test some things out. Like, hey, I wanted to try and put this architecture together. How would that work? Right. Okay. You got to go play with some of these ideas. And I would, as people are listening to this, as you're listening to this implementer series, and like, man, like this is really cool. I want to play around. ForgeRock, please go check it out. Whatever open source stuff they have downloaded, it's a great way to be able to build and test. I had one podcast, interview with a gentleman who does more like the penetration testing side, and it was like, hey, look, if you
Hmm.
want to get something, you got to have your own box, right?
Yeah.
You got to have your playground where you can go and just test and go through ideas, right? And I think that's with anything in tech. So, uh,
Well, and that's a great point. And so one of the things that ForgeRock has done, so their product stack has always traditionally been on premise,
mhm,
and over the last few years, they've migrated towards the cloud. They've got their own platform as a service now. So they have their own cloud, like a managed service that they can offer. But what they've put together this great um, developer, I want to say developer kit, but I don't think that's the right term. Um, it's a series of documentation and a series of steps that you can install the platform, at least the core pieces of the platform in Docker on your laptop. And
nice,
so they give the instructions for, here's how to install Minikube, here's how to install Docker for desktop, here's how to, here, if you're on a Mac, use Brew and
right,
install, this. Here's how to do it. Theoretically, you can get, the core components of ForgeRock in running in Docker on your laptop in 20, 30 minutes, which is a huge game changer because I remember with working with other vendors, or even at times working with ForgeRock, where if you needed a quick environment, um, I mean, it would take me multiple days to get Oracle stood up, and I didn't want to. Sorry, Oracle, I didn't want to bash you, but it would take me multiple days to get that stood up on my laptop in a VM.
right,
ForgeRock, it took me, starting from scratch, I could get the whole platform. This was years ago. I could get the whole platform installed on my laptop in an hour. Now I can do it in a couple minutes.
right,
So saving time and giving someone the tools they need to learn,
yeah,
that is huge, especially for someone as you were pointing out, someone who is just starting out. Where do I go to get information? Where do I go to learn? And just being able to get hands-on software, like you can learn a little bit. I mean, you can learn from reading, and you
right.
can learn from reading specs, and you can learn from reading documentation. But documentation is always wrong. Documentation is always, or it was right at one point, but it's
Right.
not right now.
No, yeah, exactly.
Um, so having the software on your laptop, um, that's been huge for me because there's so many times when you're trying to prove something or you need to prototype and you just like, I just need it here. I just need the software on my laptop and you know being able to do whatever I need to do.
Hands on keyboards, man. Just
Hmm.
typing in commands, doing things, breaking stuff, right? That's I think one thing that, you know, no matter where you are in the tech field, right? If you're a technical person, you know, you got to just be willing to break stuff, and
Yeah.
because it's breaking it or kind of putting things up or so. Oh, what does this do? What if I try this? I mean, that's how going back to what you talked about earlier. That's how you get that experience of, okay, now how
Hmm.
long is something going to take? Because you've done it like a number of times, and also what I think is the most important, you've done it wrong a number of times, so it's like,
Right.
ooh, yeah, I'm not doing it that way, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Oh
those
yeah.
are,
Well,
I think those are the
y-
biggest lessons, right? That go the furthest.
yeah. You gotta have scars. You gotta get burned on the software. Um, you've mentioned it a few times now, and I can't emphasize the community. ID Pro, and I'm going to the Ian spearheaded so much of that,
Yeah.
and not to discount everybody else that was involved with that because there's so many people are involved now. But the somebody asked me the other day, they were trying to find IDM vendors and partners that could help them. They want to work on an implementation or an integration with some vendors on a project. And where do I go? Where do I go? And I said, go to idpro.org, pay the membership fees because you're going to get access to Slack,
Yep.
and that right there alone is worth every penny of it. It's just being able to connect via Slack with um, I mean, I'll totally nerd out here, but some of the heroes of this space,
Yeah.
the people that have written specs, the people that have developed software, this is where they all are. And like I mentioned before, being able to, when I was first learning ForgeRock, being able to reach out to the people that had worked at Sun, that had built the original components of the original platform, that was huge for me in my success.
Yeah.
Now here we are, a few years down the road, and you and I are in a position now where the younger people, the kids, they can join ID Pro, they can get on Slack, and they can ask those questions.
Right.
They can ask, like, look, I don't understand what the difference between SAML and OIDC is, or I don't, how do why would I pick one versus the other? And they can talk to the people that actually created the specs, created the protocols, and people like yourself that have implemented over and over and over again. It's like, look, you don't have to get the scar on this one. Learn
Right.
from my scars on this one. I will help you on getting this. And it's an amazing community. It's a lot of really great people on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell everybody all the time, like, join ID Pro for the Slack channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't, like, don't ask me anything else about it. What you get, like,
Right.
and I don't mean that, like, I'm on the, body of knowledge committee and, done other things with the organization, but I'm just, the simplest thing I tell people is Slack, like, literally
Mm-hmm.
join to get on that Slack channel, because to your point, everything you can think of it. I mean, vendors are on there, people real
Right.
spec on there, like like the go-to people, right? That it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if for us that have now been deemed as like experts and thought leaders and all this stuff, it is like, okay, like, here's the person I go to. Like,
Right. Exactly.
like, oh, you've got something about, oh, well, hey, there's this guy called Justin Richard.
Yeah. Yes. Justin.
A course on it like every year. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, and and the big difference is, so with this community, so uh, there was a time in our community, as shocking as it is, that our community, the tech community, was not as welcoming.
Right.
And someone trying to break into the industry, they ask questions, so they're trying to learn. And um, I won't go too far. I know one of your earlier podcasts, you really you talked a lot about that exclusion, or the barriers,
Yeah.
in the tech community. And I have not seen any of that in the Slack channel. It is the most welcoming, and it, as you said, there's multiple vendors on here,
Yeah.
but still they're saying, oh, you need information on that, go talk to this person. Like,
Right.
it's a true community. It's a really, it's I've yet to see any negativity on there where, so the point I'm trying to make is that, if you're just starting out, if you're just trying to figure out where to go, like, go there, because it's welcoming. People are nice. They're not going to make you feel dumb for asking questions.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, as we get towards the end here, we're going to get to the famous last segment here that we like to call the last sip. And this time I actually have a cocktail that has a little bit of a last sip. I've been drinking the Whistle Pig this entire time, and it's been fantastic. I won't really call this the last sip, because even though it is, I will go and pour me some more. And that's what I do. So we'll get to it right now. All right. Yeah. So we take our last sips here, right? So I always end every podcast, Brad, with the same question to everybody, and that is, what do you want your legacy to be?
uh, it's funny that you said, I was, um, with all that's going on in the world right now. I want, like I said about ForgeRock, I want people to remember me for being nice,
Yeah.
for taking care of the people around me, for uh, for for being approachable, for contributing. I Um, you know, I just my my dad. You know, one of the things that that has always stuck with me was he's like, you can get ahead. Um, you can get ahead by being a dick. You can get ahead by being nice. Um, but you know, how do you want people to remember you? And I was like, I'd rather be known as the nice guy.
Right.
I don't think I don't think I always meet that, but that's certainly my goal.
Yeah. Look, none of us are perfect, man. We all have good and bad days, and I think sometimes um we hold ourselves to higher standards than most people do, and I think that's good, right? And it's a good thing. Like we're always going to have those moments. The good ones anyway. The nice people like you. I'm a complete dick and an asshole, so I just I've I've just embraced that. No, I can be at times. For the most part, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to, make sure that if I had an answer, if I could help in any way that I could. So, and I think you are well on your way to making sure that is, we're cementing that legacy. And I wanted to talk about real quick before we go, because, we've been kind of semi-connected for a while now, and I'm trying to think of who it was. And then you mentioned Oracle, and I was like, wait a minute, like, did you work with Matt Topper when he was at Oracle?
So yes, I did. I probably owe Matt I don't know that I've ever apologized to Matt. But so do we have time for another story?
Of course.
Okay. So I was working at Oracle and was told I could hire some people. I hired Matt, and on Matt's first day, I told Matt I was resigning. So it had nothing to do with Matt. Matt and I, he's a great guy. We still keep in touch. I saw him in Austin a couple years ago. It was just the timing of it was it cracks me up, because I thought I really wanted to work with him, and but it's just the way it played out. It's like here's your laptop. Here's by the way, I'll be done in 2 weeks, and you're taking over. So good luck. But as a testament, Matt grew that organization tremendously in the time he was there, and that was definitely the right person left and the right person stayed and grew that organization. So,
so what's very funny about this is that my story is similar with Matt, except that we met so after he took that Oracle organization and grew it, and we met on in Chantilly on a government contract. And, he came in with his Oracle buddies. And it was, I think I've told the story before, whatever, but it was the most ridiculous meeting ever, right? Oracle just was trying to come in as strong arm or something. But anyway, him and I kind of connected off that meeting. So then I think it was like a couple of months later, he leaves Oracle and starts his Uber Ether, the company he has now.
Right.
Coming on to the project, and he was like, "Oh man, like I'm really excited. Like you and I, we can really kind of like just just take this project to all these things." And I'm like, "Yeah, Matt, that's great. I'm leaving." So good luck with it. And
oh my gosh,
I'll see you. And so, but we stayed in touch. We've stayed in touch since then, and same thing. Like now, and I've watched him grow Uber Ether into what it is right now. And I mean, just he's a good guy, right? Just all around good guy. I've always loved the way how he's approached things, how he's handled things, and he's just, of course, he's always fun to nerd out with. And I'm trying to get him on this as well, but he won't answer any of my text messages, so I'm just going to start calling him at like weird hours.
I mean, just bribe him with whiskey. I mean, I know they'll. So one more Matt Topper story, and I don't think Matt knows about this.
Great! Yes.
Okay, so it's a funny story. So I'm supporting ForgeRock for a number of years, and Matt's been Matt's been supporting Oracle. I'm supporting ForgeRock. We're kind of stay in our own lanes kind of thing. Like, Matt, you keep doing your thing with Oracle to stay away from ForgeRock because that's mine. I'll stay away from Oracle. This was never spoken. This is just me and my head. So ForgeRock establishes they're formalizing and organizing their partner program. So, sign the paperwork, everything's good, year goes by, renew, everything goes good. I think it was the second or maybe it's the third year. They send me my contract and it says, Matt Topper, Uber Ether. And I was, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is how I find out that I get, someone at ForgeRock sent me the wrong contract. It was a couple years later. I saw him in Austin, and I was like, man, like, why are you cutting in on, you're cutting in on my girl here. What are you doing? But no, he is such a great guy. He is one of those people that if you're working with Matt on a project, you're going to learn so much.
Yep.
And just his knowledge, he is just one of those people that just digs so deep into the tech.
Yeah.
That he really a lot of fun to be around. A lot of fun to, even if I'm virtual, even if you're just running virtually, he's a lot of fun to be around.
Yep, definitely. Okay, that's enough of giving Matt Topper compliments.
Yeah, enough of Matt.
Right.
Sorry, Matt.
Right, so Brad, thanks again. This has been great. I would continue, but as you can see in my room now, I've lost all light and I forgot to turn the light on when I sat down. So
I see that.
But it's all good, man. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on, and I'll have you again on soon. So
yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate the invite, and thanks for giving me an excuse to have some whiskey midweek.
Hey, that is the whole reason for this podcast, is just to drink with you. That's it.
Right.
All right.
Take care.
To the next conversation, everybody. You guys stay safe. Thanks for listening to Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. Of course, this episode is brought to you by the On the Corner Podcast Network. Check us out at onthecorner.us. Also, please like, rate, subscribe, follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, go ahead, subscribe, click the button to get the notification anytime there's a new podcast coming out. Of course, there's also more great content coming as well. Please check out the C3 merchandise store. You can go to c3.onthecorner.us to check out all of our merch. You can get a nice shirt like this, and also your official C3 Squad member shirt. Just go ahead and sign up for the C3 Squad and check out our merch store. So with that, y'all know what it is. To the next cocktail, to the next conversation. Stay safe out there.